So thus far in 2025, this has been an offensively heavy class. That, of course, is not going to remain. But is that just kind of the way the chips have fallen so far, Brian? Like, I don't expect, when you've got 5 of 6 commits are on the offensive side of the ball, I don't expect this to suddenly be a defensive light class for Dan Lanning and company.
I don't think Dan's built that way mentally. He wants to have balance. Kirby taught him that. Nick's taught him that, etc. I think he knows that. When you get commitments, though, has nothing to do with your plan. Believe me, that's one thing that drives coaches crazy. They have no control over it, especially the elite kids. Off-the-record conversations about that are not ones that can be aired here for a lot of the cuss words, but these kids are going to commit when they want to do it. Maybe it's 5 in a row. It's defense next. There's no talent, but I would be surprised if they don't get 8 to 9 kids anyway that are defensive players in this class conservatively. If you don't recruit defense consistently, you will not beat the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Florida States, Ohio States in the playoff. Dan's well aware.
Yeah, and, Oregon is having a couple of high-profile visitors this weekend, not spring game weekend. I'm sure that would have been a preferred part of the game plan here, but a couple of names for Oregon fans to be aware of as the 2025 class, starts to kick into gear. And I talked recently on the show about how it felt like once they, got Rashad Samples in place, that was going to kick up the recruiting momentum. They've got Cooper Perry. Now they've got Isaiah Mozee committed, as well as, May and April really roll along. Of course, April comes first for those of us who remember our months. Apparently I do not. If you look at where Oregon is at recruiting-wise and the visitors they're bringing in, I definitely expect the number of commits to continue to roll in the coming weeks, depending on individual timelines, of course. But a couple names to know. Let's start with Trey McNutt, a 5-star safety. He's going to be on campus this weekend.
That's a really good football player. To put in perspective, for those who don't know, he's from the Northern Ohio area, plays at a prominent program, and guess who's going after him hard? Ohio
Georgia.
State.
Oh, Ohio, yeah.
Yeah, he's got.
I'll go back to sleep now.
Okay, well, that's fine. But the point is still the same. Like Ohio State, their DB class this year is one of the greatest ones I've ever seen, and they're still going after this kid. That puts things in perspective. They have arguably the top 2 corners in the nation committed. They've got a good safety, et cetera. And McNutt is like, here's the final piece to the puzzle kind of deal. He's one of those guys. He could play nickel. He could probably play corner. And he can definitely play safety. Those versatile chess pieces. Dan, with his defense, he likes to move some things around. This is a kid that can play multiple roles as he gains, knowledge of a playbook. And he's probably got NFL ability, just to be blunt. I don't really want to pigeonhole him, though, and just say, oh, he's just a safety. He's better than just a safety. You could put him at running back, and he would figure it out. I'll take those athletes every day of the week, and I'm going to speak for Dan and guess that he would too.
Yeah, I mean, they were always my favorite players to recruit on NCAA 14 because you could just put them anywhere that you wanted to, essentially, including but not limited to a quarterback. One more thing on him is, he's from the Ohio area. Ohio State's going after him. Is there a chance that game at Autzen Stadium, Ducks and Buckeyes, does that play a role in a kid's thinking when he's considering, this program or that program?
There are 3 states where the fan bases are just completely blind. Louisiana, Alabama, and Ohio. People in Ohio, it's brainwashed. That is a cult. And I'm being serious. It's ridiculous. I grew up in Indiana. I'm very, very well aware of this. He's going to be told Ohio State's going to kill him if they are underdogs by 30, Ohio State fans still think they'll win by 30. It's just, so if Oregon wins that game, it'll carry more weight for him in that state than it would in a lot of others. It's just what he's surrounded with. So I think this is an exception to the rule where it would. A lot of times these kids, they beat him, they're going to get the recruit. No, it's about relationships, but it could open his eyes. Like if Oregon put a whipping on him, beat him like 31-17, I have no idea. That's going to carry weight because like this is their first year in the Big Ten. All their eyes and on all the media guys like me are going to be like, okay, let's see how you handle the travel and all these big games. If they go like 11-1 or something, make the playoff, yeah, they absolutely will.
Yeah, I had a bold prediction on the show recently from a listener that it would look the same way that the Oregon-Utah game did last year, which I would love to see, of course. Don't anticipate 35-6, even though the game's at Autzen Stadium. I don't see us holding Ohio State to without a touchdown. Like I said, it was a bold prediction. But you know what? if you told me we were going to go into Utah, even with Bryson Barnes there, and win 35-6, I would have said, I don't know. I picked Oregon to win and cover the 6.5, but I thought Utah might score at least a touchdown or two. But McNutt is not the only high-profile safety that Oregon is going after, and I think with where their safety room is at this year, and Tysheem Johnson is in his final year of eligibility. Kobe Savage, I think, might have a one more year, but that's kind of a thin position. We'll kind of get back to that in the transfer portal sense later in the show. But clearly, Oregon is seeking safety commits in this 2025 cycle because they're also going after a guy we've talked about here on the show before in 5-star DJ Pickett.
Pickett is as rare as it gets, brother. That's the kid I know well. Grew up in Tampa, where I lived for a long time. I think he can play corner, even though he's 6'4 plus. He's the rare kid, but again, he's a chess piece. DJ doesn't care. I've talked to him about it a minute. He doesn't care what spot he plays. He just wants to play. He would actually like the ball to come his direction. He's the hardest kid in America to film because nobody will throw the ball towards him. No, seriously, I've filmed whole games and not gotten a clip. It's really aggravating. So I joke with him about it, and he just smiles because he's a quiet guy. But anyway, if they could get him, they can do whatever the hell they want because then teams got to worry about him on the back end. His burst for a 6'4 kid is insane. And if you want to put him at boundary, or if you want to put him to the field, whatever, he's a solid tackler too. Yeah, that's a dude. So he's my favorite all-around DB recruit that I've ever scouted.
Yeah, is he, he's visiting Oregon this weekend, obviously, as I mentioned, but how good of a chance do you feel Oregon has to land him? What other schools are in the mix?
LSU and Miami are considered the top of the board right now. I'm going to put an asterisk by LSU for a second. I'll come back to that. Miami, he went to recently. They're after him. His cousin, Booker Pickett, just signed there. They're pretty good friends. I mean, Mario Cristobal, as Oregon fans know, can recruit. It's closer to home. He's got family ties there, etc. But Oregon's kind of the wild card. He really liked his visit. I know that. They're going to get him on campus again, and they need help in the secondary to kind of keep up with it. You're going to see something different when you see Ohio State receivers this year. I mean, Oregon and everybody else is going to struggle. Nobody's going to cover Jeremiah Smith this year or any other year he's in college football. You got to have chess pieces to kind of match up, at least give you a chance. Size, length, athleticism has nothing to do with Dan and his coaching staff. It's just my player is better. And they got to be able to sell that. So the problem with LSU, he's got a really good relationship with their DB coach. I watched their spring game. If you want to be completely unimpressed, watch LSU secondary. They are terrible. After DJ sees how bad they're going to get smoked this fall, I have a feeling LSU might fall off. That might give Oregon a little better chance. But LSU secondary is awful.
Yeah, I think LSU upgraded their defensive staff this offseason for a reason because last year they were very bad. Like it was, for Oregon fans that didn't watch any LSU football, they were USC in the SEC.
100%. That's a great comparison.
Yeah, they were scoring a bunch of points. They had a great player, Heisman caliber guy at quarterback, and they couldn't stop a nosebleed. Just could not stop anybody, which is so strange because I think LSU football and the nostalgic part of me would you think DBU with Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson and Derek Stingley, but I also think of that 9-6 win at Alabama in 2010, 11, somewhere in that range. Brad Wing, I think, was not the kicker. He might have been the punter on that team. But anyway, I think of that, and then I watched LSU's defense last year, and it was just crazy, crazy awful. But there is still another safety name Oregon fans should be aware of. All right, last safety name for the 2025 cycle, Brian, that Oregon is after is Alex Graham. What can you tell Oregon fans about Graham?
He's originally from Detroit, transferred down to IMG before his junior year. Recruited by everybody, Michigan, Bama, Georgia, Oregon, Colorado is a team that's trending with him. Everybody in the country is recruiting him. Great kid, can really run. Another guy that could probably play nickel or could play corner. Doesn't matter. That's the kind of guy that you're going to, again, if you're going to compete for playoffs, you got to go get these kind of guys. IMG's got like 8 DBs that are being recruited, by the way. It's utterly ridiculous. But he's one of their best, and that also speaks to it. I believe he's the kind of guy that doesn't care about distance and stuff too. So I think Oregon's got a better chance than a puncher's chance here. And I wouldn't put a lot of stock on where he commits either. Again, like Bama and Georgia want him, etc. This is a guy everybody's going to continue to recruit. But I mean, the only prediction on 247 is for Colorado, which I find kind of odd, but you never know with Deion, man.